Right, I think we're settling on a number. I'm sure we'll probably have a few latecomers, but that's absolutely fine. So, well, thank you for joining us for our Student Life at University webinar. This is the second of 5 that we're running during the Meet the Russell Group webinars that we're running this week, which are 2 today, 1 tomorrow, and 2 on Thursday. If you joined us earlier on today, then thank you very much and welcome back. If you weren't able to join us, please do not worry. Everybody who has registered for these sessions is going to be sent a recording of all 5 next week, which will come into your inbox. So do not worry if you've missed out at all. So what are we in for today? We're talking about student life at university. We've got representatives talking from Cardiff University, Glasgow, University of Leeds, LSE, and the University of Southampton. We've also got some extra assistants in the chat, which have come from the form of the University of Birmingham, potentially the University of Bristol, University of Cambridge, University of Exeter, and Queen Mary University. What I will stress with this particular session is we're obviously talking to students who are currently at university. So the main point of this really is to try and find out exactly what their experience was. For those of you who are in year 13 and obviously thinking about the 2025 start, I'm sure there's going to be plenty of questions because this is something that's going to be coming up for you shortly. And for year 12s, obviously you're thinking about things nice and early, and also year 11s, there's going to be some great questions to ask. When it comes to the Q&A section, which you should be able to find at the bottom of your page, I would refrain from using that as long as you possibly can, because we've got a number of subjects which our speakers are going to be talking about. So it might just be that they're going to cover some of your questions right at the early point of the session. Now, as I mentioned, we do have representatives from Cardiff, Glasgow, Leeds, LSE, Southampton, Birmingham, Bristol, Cambridge, Exeter, and Queen Mary. If you have a question that is specific for one of those particular universities, when you do use the Q&A, maybe just put the name of the university first, just so that person is able to see that a question has been asked. So that's going to be it for me. I'm going to pass on initially now through to Ewan from Cardiff University. I'm going to share just a slide to begin with, and each of these universities are going to be speaking about their institution. So Ewan, if I can pass it over to you, let me make sure I've shared my screen correctly. I hope you can see that, Ewan. Can you confirm?
Yes, yes we can.
Fantastic. And there we go. Thank you, Ewan.
Thank you. Hi, my name's Ewan. I have been at Cardiff for 6 years now. This is the start of my 6th year. So I know a lot about Cardiff and a lot about how to be a student at Cardiff. So Cardiff is in Wales, if you don't know, and Cardiff is in the capital centre. Our uni, we're very lucky. We have a, oh, it's just gone off, Martin, the PowerPoint slides. Yay, there we go. It's back. Sorry about that. So yes, Cardiff is, we are very lucky to be in a capital city location, but also benefits that we are also very campus based. So we get the best of both worlds. So if I do want to go into Primark in between my lectures, I can easily go down and do that in 5 minutes. We are the top ranked university in Wales and top 25 overall in the country. One thing that's been particularly expressive with a lot of students at the moment is cost of living and affordability. As a student myself, I know that's really it's really tough, and trying to find any extra pennies has been it's quite important. So NatWest are named as the second most affordable city in the UK for students. I can confirm and vouch on this. The rent is a lot cheaper than some universities. Living here, going out, doing things, it's all very much cheaper, so that's really good. We are top 2 students' union in the country. I think we always float around either number 1 or number 2. So we do have a great students' union. I should say a students' union is something that is for students and run by students. It's home for a lot of pastoral services. A lot of nightlife here at Cardiff is also run through the students' union. It's also where societies. So maybe if you've got a shared interest, this is where you'll come from. And we have a really great setup here at Cardiff, and it's right on campus as well. So it's really easy to jump in and out of the Students' Union in between your lectures. Like a lot of universities, we have over 300 undergraduate courses. These keep increasing over time as we keep finding new things to start researching. And one thing is that Russell Groups, like all the universities today, we're very focused on our research. So you're getting taught by cutting edge scientists, cutting edge researchers in their fields, and then they bring what they're doing from the field work or from the lab into your lectures. So that's a bit different to maybe to other universities. And also another thing that students have been crying out for is careers support, and Cardiff has a really good careers service. We have 95% of our graduates in employment and further study or starting a new job or course within a year of traveling or within a year of finishing up. So we're really focused on getting people into a new job afterwards, or maybe into doing some research at the university like myself, or doing a taught course. So yeah, that's a little summary of what we've got going on at Cardiff. If you have any other questions about Cardiff, please put them in the chat. Thanks.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Ewan. And if I can pass on now to Ayra from Glasgow.
Hello, can everyone hear me okay? Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Good, just checking. So hello everyone, thank you for coming. I'm Ayra. I am a fourth year medical student at the University of Glasgow. So if you have any questions about Scotland or living in Glasgow, I'm your gal. Just going to tell you a little bit about the university. So it's the fourth oldest university in the English-speaking world, which is pretty cool. And as you can see in the picture, that's the main campus there, and it's a very old building. But there's a lot of stuff going on. They've recently invested like £2 billion into the university, and they've made a lot of new buildings. They made the JMS, which is, most people won't know about it, but it's a really, really big building, and a lot of students really, really like it. And they put a lot of money into PhD and research labs and everything. And the university it's pretty big. It's got 35,000 students, and they come from more than 140 countries. So there's a lot of diversity. I mean, one of the reasons I chose Glasgow is because I know there's a lot of different, it's very multi-ethnic, and there's a lot of international students, which is kind of what I wanted really. Yeah, and we offer 700 different degrees, and they come in different, so there's professional degrees, flexible degrees, and integrated master degrees. Bar vocational degrees, like I just said in law, the university really prides itself on having flexible degree structures. So you can kind of explore what you want, and they're very, very good about that kind of thing. And just a little flex, but we've been we've been voted within the top 20 universities in the UK, and we've been named the Scottish University of the Year for 2024, which is pretty cool. And the university itself is quite green. I'm part of one of the green initiatives they were doing at the university, which is why I'm talking about it. But they're very green, and they're doing a lot of things to be carbon neutral by 2030, which is one of the aims of the university. But it's a lovely city as well. It's perfect in my opinion. I feel like it's big enough to have all the amenities, but it's still small enough that it feels cozy and everyone's really, really friendly. But yeah, that's kind of all I want to say about Glasgow. I'll hand it back to you, Martin.
Thanks, Ayra. I was actually in Glasgow for the first time about 3 weeks ago, and I've got to say it was absolutely gorgeous city, and the campus looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah,
right, fantastic. So we're going to pass on now to Naya from University of Leeds.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for attending the webinar today. So I'm Naya. I have been at the University of Leeds I'm going into my fourth year, and I study chemistry, and I'm currently on the Masters of Chemistry. So again, similar to what Ewan said, I've been here for quite a long time as well. So I feel like I've got a lot of experience to share what student life is like at Leeds. So Leeds is one of the largest cities for student populations. So Leeds actually is home to 6 different universities. So as you can imagine, there's always a lot of students all over the place, and there's always kind of student-related activities going on, which is obviously a really kind of exciting and cool environment to be in. And it also means that it's a really good place to live and study, because there's lots of different activities that are that are catered for everyone's interests. In terms of the University of Leeds itself, all of the buildings and all of the facilities are located on one campus centrally, but it's got quite a unique setup in the sense that all of the buildings and facilities are on the campus, but we're only a stone's throw away from the city centre. So the campus is literally just a 10-minute walk, which is really nice. So people would normally say the University of Leeds has a city campus, which not a lot of other universities in the UK have, which is quite a special property around. And because of that, it means that it's really easy to get around, and there's lots of different places to meet friends because you'll normally be in the same area as them at the same time. We've also got a really large international student population, which is really nice and helps build the really vibrant, friendly community. And we have lots of different accommodation options available. Some options are located on the campus, some are located about a 10 to 20-minute walk away, and there's different options available, such as catered accommodation, self-catered, en suites or shared bathrooms. And the University of Leeds Union also hosts more than 300 clubs and societies, so there's definitely a lot of different ones to choose from, and I think we do boast one of the largest number of different clubs and societies on offer out of all of the universities in the UK, which is quite a nice thing to be able to say. So I'm sure you'd be able to find a society that you'd want to be part of. We also have a really active Freshers Fair and a Freshers Week. So there's lots of kind of welcome activities and support that are designed to help students settle into life on campus in Leeds and to help them enjoy their time here as much as possible. And you are also assigned your own academic tutor. No matter what the course, you have your academic tutor throughout the whole time you'll be at university. And there's also different support options available that you can utilise throughout your time at Leeds. Thank you very much, Martin.
That's great. Thank you so much, Naya. I will now pass on to Lula from LSE.
Hi everyone, my name is Lula and I am a second year law student at the LSE. LSE is a single faculty social science institution, so we're the UK's only specialist social science institution. We were founded in 1895 by the Fabian Society, and we were founded to tackle questions that have been raised by some key thinkers of our time. Our motto translated, it means to understand the causes of things, and that kind of informs our teaching today. So we have a range of different programs across departments. We have over 40 undergraduate programs, all based on the social sciences. And that also includes LSE 100, which is a flagship interdisciplinary course, which all first years do, which kind of allows you to explore big questions outside of your degree in social sciences. Approximately 97% of LSE academics are engaged in research. So essentially you're learning from the people that wrote the textbooks, which is really cool. We're located in the heart of central London, so we're on the doorstep of global industry, government, and culture. So 2 miles in one direction, you've got Westminster, and 2 miles in the other direction, you've got the finance district in the centre of the city. So yeah, we're based in the centre of key influences that impact our society. We have a relatively small campus, obviously being in the middle of London, but we also have a relatively small number of students compared to other universities. Last year, we had 12,380 undergraduate students enrolled, and only 5,587 of those were undergraduate students. LSE is a member of the University of London. This is a group of independent member universities. It means we have access to a lot of different resources across the universities. So, for example, I could go to the UCL's library, KCL's library, SOAS's library, which is really cool. And London is ranked first in the world in the QS Best Student Cities 2025, which makes it a really exciting place to live and study. And most importantly, very recently, LSE was named University of the Year 2025, ahead of Oxbridge for the first time in the Times Good University Guide. So everyone's very excited about that. Yeah, thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lula. And finally, going to pass over to Matthew from the University of Southampton.
Hello, I'm Matthew. I'm in my third year of a maths degree here at the University of Southampton. We are a globally top 100 university with about 26,000 students, both undergraduate and postgraduate. We're split across 5 campuses in Southampton. We also have a campus in Winchester, as well as sister campuses in Malaysia, and we're the first international university to be awarded a license to open a campus in India as well. This means we're not technically classed as a city university or a campus university, what's known as a multi-campus university, where our locations are clumped into campus bases, but those campuses are dotted around the city, with most of them being centered a couple of miles away from the city center. But access around Southampton is very easy, thanks to the Unilink bus system we have in place, which is designed around the university's facilities. And it is very useful. We are a top 20 UK university with 5 faculties and a whole host of support services for well-being and mental health, finance, academic concerns, careers pathways, and much more available to all students that come here. In terms of student life at Southampton, it is very diverse. We have a wide range of international students as well as UK students here. And there's always something to do. We host over 300 societies. I think the last count was 371, which is an amazing number. And students are always encouraged to start new societies if they want to. In terms of getting around, obviously we've got the Unilink bus system, but we also have 2 major train stations, which will get you into London with like an hour and 20 minutes, but also service a lot of the south as well. And I think you can also get trains to Manchester for a nice trip out if you wanted. If you are interested in finding out more about Southampton, we do have open days coming up, so hop onto our website and have a look if you want to. Back over to you, Martin.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much to all of our speakers so far, just going through everything. Just going to have a quick look, and well, yeah, not too many questions on the Q&A, which is good. Hopefully that means that you guys have all been listening to the presentation so far. And again, thank you very much to the 5 guys for going through everything. Just a reminder, of course, as we kind of move into some of the questions now, or the question portion of our webinar today. If you do have a question which is specific for one of the speakers or for one of the universities that we've got on today, and I'll go through the list again for you. We've got Cardiff, Glasgow, Leeds, LSE, Southampton, Birmingham, Cambridge, Exeter, and Queen Mary. I'm not sure if we've got Bristol yet, but so the 9 with us today, which is absolutely fantastic. So if you do have a question which is specific for one of them, then please be sure to put either their name or the name of their institution before the question so they know it's for them. Okay, so we're going to move on to some of the questions which we've got pre-supplied today. And again, hopefully these are going to answer many of the questions that you've got during the session. But please do make use of that Q&A function, because it's quite good to have a session where we've got currently in the chat, we've got 8 current university students. So if you've got any questions about what it was like to apply, what the current experiences are, then please do make sure to use that Q&A. Right, so we're going to go around to the beginning again, which means that we're back with Ewan from Cardiff University. Ewan, the question which we have for you, how do you balance university workload, socialising and other commitments?
It's a very good question. I think a lot of people can struggle with it when they get to uni. So mainly, so when they give your timetable out, I think is always a good way to start planning. Normally they'll give your timetable out in the last few weeks of September until probably January sort of time, generally at universities. And then in January, they'll give it up from January to about May time. So you get basically 2 blocks of time where you'll need to start doing a lot of planning. I think the easiest thing is to maybe use an electronic planner now, because so many people can have these go between their phones and their laptops and everything in between. So I always found it easier to do it electronically. I know some people actually prefer to have it written down and color code it and do it quite nice and neatly, as that's quite therapeutic. I like to do that sometimes too. So like workload wise, obviously it will change week by week. If you have coursework which is due in a few weeks' time in one module, maybe not another, or if you have a late bit of coursework due and you need to cram it in. So you need to be willing to fluctuate and maybe miss out on going to the pub those 1 or 2 nights, which can be a bit annoying at times, but that's what happens. I think most people like to not do any work on a Friday and a Saturday as well, just to give themselves a bit of a break and a bit of a breather, especially if they had quite a long week. I always didn't like to do any work on a Saturday. I tried to go out the house, go to the pub, have a drink, go for a walk, go play some sport, that sort of thing. And other commitments, if you need to go home, it's best if you plan these things in advance. I always, if I need to go home for an event, I try book my train ticket as early as possible so I can get it a bit cheaper, just me on a student budget. So it's finding what works for you. You might be doing it now with your A levels, and if you can find that sort of way when you're doing your A levels and maybe even your GCSEs, you can sort of apply that and tinker it towards a uni life. Yeah. Thank you, Martin.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ewan. I think that's a fantastic example there about planning ahead. Finances, I know certainly through my life, planning ahead for train journeys is so important, especially with the cost that's coming up at the moment. And also make sure, of course, that you're applying for rail cards, etc., because that's going to bring down certain costs. So that's some really good advice there. So we're going to be passing over now back to Ayra at the University of Glasgow. Ayra, the first question for you: is there health and well-being support available?
The short answer is yes, and the long answer is far too long. There's just too many options, I'm afraid. Too much support for everyone. But I'll summarize it for you all. There's a lot of peer support, and there's like Nightline, which is a 24-hour night service, and there's student listeners, so you can chat to other students if you need to. And then there's all the other pastoral support. So in university accommodation, you have a warden or several wardens, and they're there and they're available 24/7. So that's quite helpful and quite a nice security for first year students and also their parents. It's one of the questions a lot of parents ask me, and I'm like, yeah, there's someone there, don't worry. There's a lot of counseling services and mental health support as well. I won't really go into the academic side of things because that's a whole other thing. But they do a lot of, there's like a whole advice line that you can phone and ask for help, and they do master classes to how to cope with any mental health conditions and stuff like that. For different specific groups, you've got different health and well-being support in place. So there's a whole section of university that does disability, so there's the disability services, and you've got a whole other service, and there's a chaplaincy, and they're interfaith, so they kind of deal with that sort of side of things. And you've got a whole platform and a whole group of people for international students, and they kind of deal with any issues that they might have or any questions they might have. And then there's also just generally student support, which is just any problems that you might have, and they basically help you, direct you basically where you need to go, essentially. And there's a lot of self-help on the university itself. So they have a lot of pages and resources about different things. Like a lot of students have written blogs and stuff on how to manage homesickness if you're an international student, how to manage your busy courses, what nightclubs are the best ones around. There's podcasts online and where students are talking about different things about Glasgow. And yeah, that's most of it. There's a lot more, but if you want to know a bit more, you can look on the website.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ayra. We're going to pass through back to Naya at the University of Leeds. Naya, your question was, are there many clubs and societies to join? I know obviously the University of Southampton have already mentioned a number there, but is there a lot to do at the University of Leeds? And can you maybe speak about some of the ones that are available?
Yeah, of course. So hi everyone again. So again, the short answer, yes. Similarly to Southampton, we've got over 300 different clubs and societies available for students to join. And again, it is very much encouraged to do so. And what's really good is all of the societies, especially the sports related ones, they offer give it a go sessions. So it's really nice in Freshers Week and in the first kind of couple of weeks of uni. All of the sports societies and it is predominantly the sports societies, but a few other societies, they do tend to offer give it a go. So you can have a go at actually trying out the sport before you want to, commit and buy a membership, which is really good. So a few of the different kind of categories of clubs that we have to offer. We have academic clubs, we have outdoor clubs, so that could be anything to do with like hiking. We've got sports clubs, like I said, so pretty much any sport you can think of, we offer that as a society. So some examples could include boxing or football or hockey, things like that. We have volunteering opportunities as well that are through societies. So some examples of that would include if you wanted to, for example, be involved in Leeds RAG. So RAG stands for Raise and Give. So that society basically is formed through students holding their own fundraisers, and they're the largest supporter of the Leeds fashion show. Personally, myself, I've been a member of Yoga Society and Kickboxing Society, two very kind of good societies to be part of, and I've made lots of friends through those. So yeah, we've got a lot of different societies and clubs to offer. If you go onto the Leeds Union University website, you'll find a much more detailed, comprehensive overview of literally everything we want to offer if you want more information. But yeah, thank you very much.
That's great. Thank you very much, Naya. Now, Lula, I'm going to have to drag you away from answering a lot of the questions which are coming through in the Q&A, so apologies for that. But your first question is, do you have any advice for adapting to living alone and being responsible for yourself?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to get through a few of them there because I didn't know if I was going to be able to mention them all during the Q&A later. But yes, so I should note that I am a commuter student. So this is going to be a lot talking about independence and also the experience of the people around me. But in terms of being responsible for yourself, that's really, really vital, regardless if you're commuting or if you're living in student accommodation. And for me, it all comes down to schedule and timetabling, because at university, you lose the strict structure that you have in secondary school. So for example, last year I had a class on Thursday at 7 p.m. So I was leaving campus at 8 p.m. I wasn't getting home till 9 p.m. I was obviously coming in quite a bit later, but obviously you have to kind of learn, where are you going to fit things in your day? No one is going to tell you, okay, now you're going to go home and you're going to have dinner. You have to figure it out for yourself. So making the call on meal times, on when you're going to study, on when you're going to go to bed, when are you going to sleep, how long are you going to sleep for? Those are all things that you now have to make a decision for yourself on. And I think that is a really, really big thing, and it takes time to get to grips with, and it did definitely took me time to get to grips with. In terms of living alone, I know that looking around me, some people thrive immediately, they enjoy it, but some people struggle. I think it's important to take note of all the different resources that are available. LSE, for example, we have the Residential Life Programme to support people who are moving away from home for the first time. And it's also it's important to build your support system, because there are lots and lots of people around you that are going through the exact same thing. And having them can really make the difference in having, not the greatest time for a long time at the start of the year, or kind of settling in quicker. But yeah, like I said, I do commute. So in terms of living alone, I can't offer too much specific advice on that or self-specific advice. Independence is a huge thing, and being responsible for yourself. You will learn it eventually. It doesn't happen straight away. But scheduling, timetabling, you'll pick it up, and it is the most important thing, I think, in that sense.
That's great. Thank you very much, Lula. And then we're going to come back around to Matthew at the University of Southampton. Matthew, the question that was asked for you was, what is the main difference between life at secondary school and at university?
Personally, I think it's more the independence. As Lula said, no one's telling you when to study, when your classes are, and also what shocks a lot of students is the fact that you won't have much physical contact time with your lecturers. You'll have no more than, say, 15, unless you're maybe doing medicine or something. And there's quite a few courses that you'll have even less. So it's really about learning what sort of timings work for you, when you need to leave to get to your lectures on time, when you need to do your day-to-day things like shopping and washing clothes and things, and fitting in time to make sure you're taking care of your well-being, you're eating properly, you're not just turning to takeaways every day, even though they're easy. It's so much better. It feels so much better just to have a meal that you've cooked, and also having fun. You've got to leave. Some students don't do any society stuff or go out at all, but a lot of students find that they're much better when they do go out, and you make use and enjoy the fact that they've not got parents or a curfew or something like that. They're responsible for themselves. Yes, occasionally you'll sort of trip up and go too far, but this university is sort of here as a stepping stone into adult life, and it's helping you to adjust to that.
Yeah, I think that's a fantastic answer, actually, there, Matthew. A lot of really, really good points made. And a good segue for our next question, actually, which is back round to Ewan from Cardiff, as you mentioned about kind of food, etc. So, Ewan, would I usually cook for myself? Are there cafeterias, or would you share the cooking with your flatmates?
That's a very good question. I think a lot of people think about food, myself included. So I think it can be a mix of everything depending on what you like. Most people at Cardiff, I'd say, are self-catered in their first years. So the two types of accommodation you could have are self-catered and catered accommodation. Self-catered tends to work that there's a nice kitchen with everything there. You'd obviously bring your pots and pans and your cutlery and everything you might want to bring. Maybe a rice cooker is always quite popular, air fryers, things like that. And you cook all for yourself. No one else is cooking for you. And then you will have catered accommodation. That'll typically be, you go into a hall, there'll be like a meal made for you. You won't have a choice particularly on that meal. I know some universities will change that they'll have you'll be able to get lunches. Some universities don't do that, so it is worth checking what a university's policy is on their catered accommodation. I know some universities don't cater half the meals on a weekend, for example, so they leave you with like a little toaster and expect you to just make toast. But it's just worth double checking that if you know that you're not going to get on with self-catered accommodation. Cafeterias, though, there are lots of cafes and restaurants and quick places to eat, get food on campuses, like across universities in general. I tend to go and get my lunch out normally, probably more than I should. But there's lots of different things that cater for people. At Cardiff, we have our Students' Union on campus, and there's a pub in there. There's about 3 different places. There's like bagel shop, there's a burrito shop, there's a falafel shop. So there's lots of different options. Cooking with flatmates, though, it happens a lot more than you think. I think a really popular one to do on a Sunday night is do a nacho table in first year, and you get like a roll of foil out, and then like toast nachos and get them like all on the table, then get like cheese sauce and salsa. It's like a good way of like chatting to people, especially in those first few weeks. I remember doing that, and that was a really good time. So it's like things like that. But then obviously when it gets to more like practical cooking, I know a lot of people would maybe buy like a big bulk of chicken and then like meal prep with each other and things like that. So it's up to you, and you'd have to talk with your flatmates about that, because some people might have dietary requirements and things like that. But yeah, catering for yourself is a new step. Some people are really good at it, some people aren't, and if you are one of those people, I would recommend spending the summer before going to university, just getting a few quick and easy meals under your belt that are quite cheap to make too. Yeah, thank you, Martin.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ewan. And I've got to say, some of the questions that are coming through in the Q&A are absolutely fantastic, and I hope that we're answering those nice and swift for you. I can see that a number have been answered already. If you haven't had your question answered for 5 or 10 minutes, please don't worry. Hopefully, either some of those questions have been addressed already by some of the questions which are coming through verbally, or one of our team is going to be able to come back to you and answer some of those. So moving on from you, we go back to Ayra at University of Glasgow. Ayra, what is the difference between lectures, tutorials, and seminars?
I think this is probably true for most universities, but lectures are for essentially your entire year group or your module class. So, and they'll be in a big lecture theatre typically, and they'll have your lecturer and they'll give you a presentation about whatever it is. So in my year, I've got 400 students, or just about, so a really big lecture theatre, and typically in most courses, your lecturer will either give you some pre-reading to do, or they'll give you the lecture slides beforehand. And I've always found that it's really good to have a look at the slides, just so that when you're actually in the lecture theatre, the content is not completely new to you. So that's what a lecture is essentially. And it can be a little interactive, but generally it's just a presentation and you can ask questions at the end normally. And a tutorial is small group. So my tutorials have always been either 5 to 10 people, never really more than that. And you'll have your tutor, and you'll probably have some pre-reading, pre-tutorial exercises to do. And when you get there, there'll be a lot of questions, a lot of talking in groups, and it'll be very, very interactive. And I feel like they're really, really good learning. And seminars are similar, but also kind of different. They can be a little bit bigger, just kind of depends on what the seminar is on. Like for medicine, sometimes we have seminars which are like mini lectures, but sometimes they can be like one of the seminars I remember I had was we had a dummy and we all had to practice doing CPR on this dummy. And that was one of our first aid courses, which is obviously that's not something that every other course will do, but generally seminars are a bit bigger, like 30 people, like a classroom kind of size. But they can also be pretty attractive too, because it's just more fun when you talk to your lecturer and you can just get a bit more out of it. But yeah, that's basically it.
That's great. Thank you, Ayra. And if you wouldn't mind actually staying on, because there's a question which just came through, which actually Will has just answered in the chat, which I need to now find, but hopefully you can just cover this, because I think it's one which a lot of people would be wondering about. Could you just tell us a little bit about how your day is structured at university, kind of in terms of how long the lectures are? I mean, do you have to be at the university all day? How is everything kind of spread out over the course of a normal day for you?
I'll tell you what it's like for first years and second years, because I'm in 4th year now, which means I'm on hospital placement, so I just have hospital stuff. But in first year and second year, it was like I normally had lectures on a specific day. So in first year was Tuesday, so we just had lectures and lectures from like 9 to 5. And then during the week we would have like a tutorial in the morning, then we had dissection in the afternoon for like 2 hours, then we had placement for a little bit. But for some reason we would always have a day that was off. I don't know if that was meant intentional, but we would always just have like a Thursday or a Tuesday off. and we did a lot of catching up during that time. But that was sort of first year and second year. And now, currently in fourth year, my day is I go into the ward in hospital in the morning at 9 because that's when the handover is, and I kind of just follow the junior doctors around and I can do any interventions I like. I talk to a lot of the nurses, a lot of patients. We have lectures and stuff in the afternoon sometimes from the doctors in the hospital. But it just depends on what's happening in the afternoon, because if it's something really interesting going on, then I'll stay. But normally I just go home after lunch and just catch up and do some learning at home. But yeah, that's generally my day. In 9 to 5 at least.
That's great. Thank you, Ayra. Thank you. Apologies for picking on you there, but
No, that's fine.
I think that's definitely a good question to answer, because when we talk about the difference in being at secondary school to going to university, obviously people are wondering exactly what that normal day is going to look like. So thank you very much for that. We're going to go back round to Naya then at University of Leeds. Naya, is it recommended to have a part-time job whilst attending university?
So I think obviously this is a case-by-case situation. I would say fundamentally it depends how well you're good with balancing a lot of different things. I think for me personally, I like having a part-time job because it helps provide structure to my day. So I work as a student ambassador whilst being at university, and it's a really great job as it's flexible, so it's 0 hours. You can work around your studies, so if you don't want to work one week, then that's absolutely fine. There's no one that's going to be sending you an email. It's basically they'll send through shifts and you commit to the ones that you want to do, so it works around your schedule. And yeah, you can kind of get involved as well as being an ambassador and helping out at the open days. I would say for me that I enjoy having a job at uni, as it also means that I don't have to work when I'm at home in the holidays. However, I've also got friends who prefer to not work during term time, and they'd rather work during the Christmas and Easter and summer holidays instead. So I think it does depend on kind of yourself and what you think is doable. But I think the most important thing is having a job that is flexible, because I think a lot of students would struggle, say, if they had to work a certain number of hours a week. That might be difficult, say, if you've got coursework to do. So I would say it generally is recommended, but it's not recommended to kind of be working more than 10 hours a week. I would say 10 hours a week is probably the amount of hours you can get away without starting to compromise your degree, because obviously at the end of the day that is the most important thing. But yeah, I mean, personally I would recommend it, but I would say for someone who struggles to juggle a lot of things around, then it probably may not be the best option. But yeah, thank you.
That's great. Thank you very much, Naya. And yeah, to echo those thoughts there, I guess it's important, really, like with anything, really, it's just about balance, making sure that you're not spending too much time at work that actually is going to affect your studies. Right, so we're going to pass back over to Lula at LSE. The question, Lula, how does student accommodation work? Do students typically move off campus after their first year, or would they stay in on-campus accommodation for the duration of their course?
So the way that it works at LSE is a little bit different, because our student accommodation isn't on the campus per se. It's very close to the campus, about a 20-minute walk. But obviously, because we're in the centre of London, we don't have the accommodation on site. So accommodation is guaranteed for first years as long as you sign up by the deadline. It's not guaranteed for second and third years, but you can apply to stay on, and if there are spaces after all the first years have been accommodated for, then you will be given you'll be given a place. However, there is lots and lots of support that LSE offer for people that want to start privately renting after their first year. Also, there are lots of non-LSE student accommodation, which people actually, I find, typically move on to in their second and third year, as well as privately rented flats, of course, but that is very expensive. Of course, we're in the centre of London. So places like Urban Nest, it's a Uni of London kind of accommodation. So it's mixed with people from UCL, KCL, SOAS, other London unis. And that's really common for second and third years to move into. But in terms of privately renting, LSE offer lots and lots of support with that. So for example, we have access to the Uni of London Housing Service, which will check contracts for you. So before you enter into a contract with a private renter, with a private landlord, they will read over the contract to make sure that you're not getting into any kind of tricky situations. But yeah, I would say that out of my friends who are in student accommodation in the first year, some have stayed on in student accommodation, they got places, some moved to Uni of London accommodation, and some are now moving into privately rented flats. But yeah, that's usually how it works at LSE.
Perfect. That's great, Lula. Just noticing that there's a question on the Q&A which relates to personal statements. I should mention on Thursday, 4:30, we have a session on personal statements. So if there's anything with regards to that particular area, be sure to check in for that particular webinar. And obviously, we will be covering some information in there about the changes from 2025 to 2026 onwards, obviously, which will be recommended for year 13s and then obviously different for year 12s onwards. Right, the kind of final question of our second round of questions then is going to go across to Matthew at the University of Southampton. Matthew, what support is available for cost of living concerns?
There's definitely a lot of support available at any university, I would say. And what makes universities really, really useful with this is they'll have support from the university itself, but you can also find support from the student union, which is often a separate entity, so you can have you can get even more help. And there's loads of different ideas out there, whether it's having mini food banks or arranging activities for students to do, say a trip to do archery or something, which would be charged at much less than what a student would pay if they were going by themselves. Or things like helping students find employment opportunities as part-time work. I know student masters were mentioned at some point. They're a really great way to earn a little bit extra money, but also working at your students' union is also helpful. And there are loads of opportunities throughout the year as like library assistants or helping at your halls or something. Most universities will also have discretionary support funds available. If you're really struggling, you can go and apply for those, and there'll always be some support available, so that you're not missing out and it's not affecting your studies in most ways. A lot of the time, it also helps just having like suggestions of what to do on a tight budget, whether it's mini blogs of useful recipes you can make after spending like £5, or how to budget effectively and things like that. Particularly when things don't always align up with your student loan coming in. It's always useful to know you can put things away and you guarantee you'll have money for the essentials without meaning you're missing out too much on having fun and enjoying yourself.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you very much, Matthew. So I just wanted to ask a question to all of our panelists here today, and this will kind of be the final round. What we'll do is we'll keep the Q&A function live even after the kind of questions are all done, just so we can get through as many as possible. But my generic question to everyone, so we're going to start again with Ewan, is kind of two sides really, of which you can cover one of the two sides. Could you tell us, Ewan, what is your number one tip for students at the moment who might be on this webinar, either in the process of actually applying to university or being at university? What is the number one thing that you would suggest to people or recommend, maybe from personal experience?
Oh, such a hard question. That's that I think it's so specific to university, so specific to what you want to get out of it. I would say if I was going back to before I started uni and was like looking at where you guys are right now, I know a lot of people that really were let down because they didn't do their research beforehand about what the course was entailing, what was I expecting. So doing things like this is like really, really good. I always found that it was best to put information on Excel spreadsheets and have it all there to say like, oh, what sport facilities does this uni have against this uni? If I was making my decision based on that. There's always some stupid thing at open days where they say that if you come to Cardiff, Cardiff has the most castles of any capital city in the world. So if you base your universities on castles, come to Cardiff for that. It's a very stupid thing to do, but it's just thinking about what is this for you. And I'd also say that also university doesn't mean if you go into doing bioscience, you're going to end up in a job in bioscience. Lots of people just go off and do various different things. I have had friends who have left biosciences and gone to do teaching. Someone's retrained and become a computing scientist. There's all sorts of stuff going on. So yeah, just think and and don't go where your friends go. That's always another bit of tip. Yeah.
That's great. Thank you very much, Ewan. So kind of the same question then, Ayra. I guess probably what we're trying to say is, what would you tell your former self, knowing what you know now? So what would be your number one tip that you would give to a student today who is either in the process of applying to university, either in that application process or in terms of actually life at university itself? Oh, Ayra, you're on mute.
Yeah, I thought I pressed it, but I didn't. I would probably tell myself this is not like secondary school. In a lot of ways, it's a lot better. There's so much more freedom. And I actually wish I told my first year self to have more fun because the as you progress through the years, you have to obviously study a bit more. And then if you're doing an honors, you're in honors years, and then your grades actually really do matter. And I genuinely wish I'd done a lot more fun stuff in first year. Like when I was in third year, me and my friends decided to do all the taster sessions in Freshers Week. Because we're like, we're finally not first years, and we're not stupid anymore. We can actually have fun. And that was genuinely so enjoyable. But I wish I allowed myself to have that kind of fun. But I think it took me a whole year to actually learn how to study at university. And that was probably the biggest difference. And I wish I could go back and tell myself, here is the secret recipe. This is how to do everything. You don't have to suffer through all the nonsense. But yeah, probably that. Yeah. I don't know if that was helpful at all, but that is probably what I would tell myself.
No, that's absolutely perfect. And the same question, Naya, reflecting on the process it went through, what would maybe you do different, or what advice would you give to a student on this webinar?
I mean, I think for me, I found the whole UCAS situation quite overwhelming, especially because at the point in which I was applying, it was during COVID. So I can actually visit any of the universities that I was applying for. I can attend the open days, I can visit the campuses. So truthfully, I did select my university's options quite blindly. So I would say I'm very happy where I am. I'm very happy I did end up at the University of Leeds, and I don't think I would have changed anything. But I definitely think for me during the whole kind of application process, it probably would have been, I think definitely like if I had attended open days, like I would encourage everyone to actually attend the open days for the universities you're interested in, because I definitely do feel like, especially for my course specifically for chemistry, we have to do a lot of labs, and the lab facilities do vary quite a lot between the two universities, and that's something that you would only actually be able to observe if you actually go and visit. So I would definitely, to my former self, if I had the opportunity to make the most of attending the open days, and also if you have any opportunities to meet any students, please ask any questions you have and really make the most of that opportunity. I think those are two things that I definitely would wish that I had when I was applying, because yeah, I felt like when I actually came to university I felt quite in the dark. I didn't really know what I was doing, and just kind of preparing a bit more for the course, actually reading the fine details about what we're going to be doing. And my last bit of advice would be, actually when you're applying for the courses, actually reading through what modules are available and what the programs are like, because the modules do vary quite a lot between universities. One university might specialize in one thing, so just kind of be careful with that. The courses can vary quite a lot, but yeah, thank you.
That's great. Thanks so much. And then, yeah, Lula from LSE, the same question to you. And I guess also, I mean, we are going to be covering personal statements on Thursday, but if there's any sort of insight you also have, Lula, about when you were doing your personal statement at all, whether there was anything which maybe you would have changed in it or wish you'd put in, anything you've got on that at all would be amazing.
Could I just double check the question? Because I was answering things in chat and I think I've picked up what the question is, but I didn't hear it at the start.
Yeah, no problem at all. I know that a lot of chat questions have come your way. So basically what the question is, you know, what would be your number one tip for anyone going through the application process at the moment? So either in applying or actually whilst at university, what would be the number one tip that you would give a student who's currently on this webinar?
Okay, so I have spoken to a lot of students who are currently in the process of, you know, thinking about or making an application to university. And this also links to the personal statement point. One of the biggest things I find is this huge kind of obsession or emphasis on having the most insane, like personal statement with the most insane supercurriculars, tons of work experience. You know, LSE is not an easy university to get into. I didn't have tons of supercurriculars. I didn't have work experience. I didn't have any volunteering experience. But I read a lot. And, you know, that was the easiest thing I had access to. And I spoke about those books in my personal statement and something worked. I mean, I think that comparison is a thief of all joy, right? I think that that's something that I would tell myself and I would tell anyone. If I could go back and tell myself, and now I can tell you guys, there will always be someone who has done something that you think is cooler, or done something, you know, they secured this really, really cool like internship thing or whatever. It's really uncommon. No one I know at LSE came in with like tons of experience. Most of us didn't know anything about law at all, to be honest. We just knew that we were interested in it. And you realize how little you know once you get here. I think that it's really, really important to remember to have some perspective and not get caught up in the kind of, I don't know, not get caught up in the rush of like, oh my God, everyone's doing so much and I don't have enough. And whatever you have, you can work with it and you can make a really, really great application, and a really, really great personal statement. So that's what I would say. I would also say that universities will really appreciate what I did. It's just some small advice I give in personal statement. Show a little bit of like analytical skill, or like talk about something you've done, talk about something you've read, and go beyond that. Don't just say, I read this, or I did this, I listened to this. Talk about how it interested you, what it links to, its implications, things like that. That helped me to kind of flesh out my personal statement without having tons of supercurriculars. So yeah, that's what I would say.
That's great. Thank you, Lula. And then finally over to Matthew at the University of Southampton. What do you wish you knew that you know now? What changes would you possibly make, and what would your advice be or number one tip be for a student on this session?
I would say just make the most of first year. Quite often your requirements in first year aren't as heavy as in any of the other years. So go out there, do all the activities, join all the societies, enjoy yourself in your first year, learn what you really like doing, and then continue that into your later years. And that way you will find you have a really great experience in second and third year, because you've already figured out what works for you and your timetable and your style of university life, while it hasn't had too much impact on you, so you can more effectively run it in more effectively live your student life in your second and third year and fourth year.
That's great. Thank you very much, Matthew. I think we're probably going to call it a day there. So I'm just going to say a big thank you to Ewan from Cardiff University, Ayra from University of Glasgow, Naya from the University of Leeds, Lula from LSE, and then Matthew from Southampton. We've also had Catherine from the University of Birmingham. We've had Martha from University of Cambridge, William from University of Exeter, and Zara from Queen Mary, University of London, answering questions in our Q&A as well. There are still a number of questions in the Q&A which are yet to be answered. So I'm going to leave the session open for a little bit so we can go through some of them. I will stress that any question which relates to a particular course, some of our current university students aren't necessarily going to be best placed to answer things like that. For instance, there's something on best places to do Latin or different courses, etc. But what I would recommend is joining us again on Thursday, where we've got two different sessions. And I've just posted in the main chat some information and a link about where to find out about the remaining sessions. Our next session is actually going to be at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning, which is our international student session. So if there's anybody who's joining us today who is in fact an international student, I recommend joining that session at 9 a.m. I'll reiterate again, of course, that all of our sessions that we're running this week are all being recorded, and next week you're going to have a link to all of those recordings, so you're going to be able to go through everything. I appreciate with the Q&A being quite quick and all the answers being quite quick, it might be difficult to take every single bit of nugget of information, but hopefully via the recordings that you're going to have, you'll be able to go through all of those. So as I say, I'm going to keep the session open for a little bit longer so we can go through some of the questions, but thank you very much for joining the session, and hopefully we get a chance to see you later on in the week. Thank you very much.